ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to introduce a little lady direct from New York. That bundle of TNT, Miss Bubbles Hennessy.
Well, here I go. Wish me luck. Finally found a fella, almost completely divine, but his vocabulary is killing this romance of mine. We get into an intimate situation, and then begins this Romeo's conversation. He says, murder, he says, every time we kiss. He says, murder, he says, at a time like this. He says, murder, he says, is that the language of love? He says, solid, he says, takes me in his arms. He says, solid, he says, meaning all my charms. He says, solid, he says, is that the language of love? He says, chick, chick, you torture me, zoot, are we living? I'm thinking of leaving him flat. He says, dig, dig, the jumps the old ticker is given. Now he can talk plainer than that. He says, murder, he says, every time we kiss. He says, murder, he says, keep it up like this, and that murder, he says, in that impossible tone, will bring on nobody's murder but his own. He says, Jackson, he says, and my name's Marie. He says, Jackson, he says, shoot the snoop to me. He says, Jackson, he says, is that the language of love? He says, wah, wah, he says, when he likes my hat. He says, what the heck is that? He says, woo, woo, he says, is that the language of love? He says, hep, hep with helium. Now, babe, we're cooking, and other expressions to wit. He says, we're into groove, and Dick Groove is good looking. He sounds like his uppers don't fit. He says, murder! He says, murder! And the way he says murder, in that impossible tone, I've told him over and over and over again that it'll be nobody else's murder